Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take a stack of information and, well, transform it into clear, actionable understanding. Today, we're embarking on a really insightful exploration. It's about a pivotal moment in recent Israeli. The 2005 disengagement Gaza.
That's right. Often called the Gush Katif withdrawal.
Exactly.
And this event, I mean, it's nearly 2 decades past now, but it still casts such a long shadow over Israeli society. It really shapes ongoing discussions about national identity, security, internal divides.
It really does.
Our source material for this deep dive is incredibly rich. It gives us a pretty candid look at the aftermath, the lasting impacts, and from multiple, often conflicting perspectives.
Absolutely. So our mission today is really to unpack these narratives, try to understand the varied viewpoints, and see how this defining moment is still interpreted, debated, maybe even reframed today. Especially through the lens of internal Israeli dialogue. And to help us really grasp these shifts, our sources often draw on that powerful biblical metaphor of King Saul and King David. It's a framework we'll delve as we talk.
Yeah, it comes up quite a bit.
Okay, so let's get started.
Let's do it.
We'll begin by examining how the disengagement itself was, because, wow, the perspectives in our source material are strikingly different right from the beginning.
It's remarkable, isn't it, just how starkly contrasting these views are? I mean, some accounts within our sources frame the disengagement as, well, nothing short of a crime.
A crime?
Yeah, or a betrayal of the public interest. They suggest it was a sacrifice, maybe for private gain, even called a desecration of the state, society, history. It points to this really deep-seated grievance over, who truly holds the nation's core values.
And closely tied to that, the role of the media keeps coming up.
Constantly. Our sources detail this perception that the media really demonized the religious public and the settlers of Gush Katif.
Gush Katif being that block of Israeli settlements in the Gaza Strip at the time.
Exactly. And the perception was that the media often linked their very existence, just them being there, to the absence of peace.
Interesting.
Now, if we look at the wider context, the Palestinian perspective, which is detailed in our sources too, it paints a completely different picture.
Right.
For some, it was just a clear victory for Hamas. It validated their approach over Fatah's, you see. The material describes it as enabling this significant triple jump, as they put it.
Triple jump.
Yeah. 2005 disengagement first, then the elections in the Palestinian territories in 2006, and then it culminated in Hamas actually taking control in 2007.
So a direct sequence in their view.
That's how some saw it.
And it was particularly striking, I thought, was how even the withdrawal of the Israeli military itself was seen by some Palestinian factions, like Fatah's military arm, as a great defeat for the powerful Israeli army.
A cause for celebration on their side, definitely.
Yeah.
The sources also, they reveal Ariel Sharon's vision at the time and just how dramatically it contrasted with what actually happened.
Okay, like what?
Well, take Abu Mazen Mahmoud Abbas, the Palestinian Authority president then. He apparently had this dream of a port in Metzerim, one of the settlements.
Port?
Yeah, with connections to Singapore, part of a much bigger plan for economic prosperity. That was the vision.
Wow, okay.
Yet, from another viewpoint in the sources, those same abandoned settlements tragically became training centers for Palestinian cadres. So completely subverting the original intention.
A total inversion of the plan.
Absolutely.
And we also see warnings even before the
Yes. The sources indicate that right-wing groups, particularly settlers, were cautioning kibbutz residents living near Gaza about potential future violence. But at the time, those warnings were reportedly dismissed. The kibbutz residents apparently felt they didn't want the settlers protecting them, that sort of thing. Hindsight is tough there.
It really is.
Yeah.
And that leads us to consider, well, how do people ultimately reconcile such pain?
The sources show that for some, the disengagement inflicted just deep pain. It was perceived as pure evil, just fundamentally wrong.
But for others?
For others, though, it was framed differently. It was viewed as maybe the lesser of two evils among some extremely difficult choices facing the nation.
So no easy answer, clearly.
Not at all.
Now, beyond the immediate aftermath, our deep dive shows how the disengagement seemed to really significantly worsen existing internal rifts within Israeli society, or maybe it even carved out entirely new ones.
I think that's fair to say, indeed. That pattern of media blame, for instance, as described in the source, it continued well beyond Gush Katif.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Religious Zionists, residents of the periphery, they found themselves repeatedly accused, in some narratives, of being responsible for Arab violence, even during later events like Operation Guardian of the Walls. That conflict in 2021.
So it points to this persistent narrative, linking specific groups inside Israel to external threats.
Exactly. A kind of scapegoating, perhaps. And another new point of friction that emerged, particularly in cities after 2005, revolved around these Quranic cores.
Quranic cores, what are those?
They're essentially religious nuclei or group that established themselves within city. And our material indicates they created significant tension.
How so?
Well, you had people from the cores asserting this is our country, while Arab residents sometimes felt resources were being diverted away from them or that they were being made to feel unwelcome.
So it shows how these deep ideological divides can play out in very tangible local conflicts over resources and identity right there in urban spaces.
Precisely. And the language used to describe these divisions, it's incredibly stark.
Stark how?
Well, our sources use terms like deep hatred, disregard. Some even refer to religious Zionism in quite extreme terms as a benign tumor that became cancerous.
Wow.
And individuals being labeled things like Death Eaters who have blood on their hands.
That's intense language.
It is. And this level of animosity, as it's conveyed in the source material, it goes way beyond just political disagreement. It suggests a profound struggle for the very soul and direction of the nation, where one side seemed to perceive the other as almost an existential threat.
So what does this all mean then for the political landscape?
Well, there's a palpable fear that comes through in the source, a fear of religious Zionism gaining significant political power. It's seen as opposing the worldview of key political figures from the, let's say, the established left, like Yossi Beilin or Yossi Sari.
Right, prominent voices.
And the rhetoric even goes so far, in some parts of our sources, as to describe the behavior and arguments of opponents as mass psychosis.
Mass psychosis?
Yeah, like irrational, even harming their own security, their own economy, democracy, described as a bizarre event involving provocation and even master serf dynamics. Really loaded terms.
Extremely loaded. It raises a question then. Does one group's struggle, in this view, implicitly target another?
That's a key point the sources highlight. There's this fear of a domino effect.
Domino effect.
The idea being, look, once the settlers are dealt with, maybe religious people in general will be next. They're seen in this fearful perspective as kind of originating from the same source, the same basic challenge to a certain worldview.
And are there examples given?
Yeah, the Yom Kippur incidents in Tel Aviv are cited, where some felt that resolving the quote-unquote settler issue would just shift the conflict onto the religious community more broadly. It's this idea of a perceived progression.
And we also see this extending to other national debates, right? Like the conscription of Haredim, the ultra-Orthodox.
Absolutely. There's deep internal conflict there, too. Even among people who might generally agree on the conscription itself, it touches these same raw nerve.
It really sounds like deep,
profound divisions yet. But despite all that, there's one really striking insight that comes through from the sources, too. It's the power of one-on-one interaction. It suggests that while media narratives might spread hatred and division, actual personal conversations often lead to greater appreciation, understanding.
Really?
Yeah, even a sense of connection. It kind of reinforces that old idea that unity at the personal level is Israel's true strength.
That's hopeful amidst all the division.
It is, a counter-narrative almost.
Okay, now let's turn to that powerful historical and metaphorical framework you mentioned earlier, the one that runs through our source, the story of King Saul and King David.
Right.
Our sources use this biblical narrative as a really powerful lens to interpret Israel's societal evolution, don't they?
They do. It's quite central to some of the analysis. King Saul is often presented as representing an older political establishment, maybe the founding generation.
And David.
And King David symbolizes a newer emerging ethos, often identified with religious Zionism in these texts.
So the metaphor introduces King Saul's evil spirit, as the Bible describes it, as a symbol for the perceived collapse of these founding leaders. Eric Sharon is sometimes used as the prime example here.
Exactly. His disengagement from Gaza in this metaphorical read is presented as Saul throwing a spear, right? Throwing a spear at the very heart of the settlement.
Which is identified with David.
Which is identified with the spirit of David, or religious Zionism.
And this Davidic spirit, how is it characterized in the...
It's typically characterized by its focus on, building the land, learning Torah, establishing new settlements, that kind of proactive, faith-driven building.
Okay.
And what's particularly highlighted in this context is the critique leveled at those described as lesh varam.
Lesh varam, what is that?
It's a term from the source. It seems to refer to former officials, maybe the old guard, and they're seen as having collapsed, essentially. Failed when faced with the ongoing challenges of state building, defending the kingdom, so to speak.
And linked to Sharon.
The sources explicitly connect them to the same evil spirit, they argue, afflicted Ariel Sharon himself. It's a strong critique of that generation's leadership framed through this biblical lens.
And our sources also get into a significant historical debate within the religious Zionist leadership during the disengagement itself, right?
Yes, a really critical moment for them. They face this stark choice, according to the sources.
Which was?
Either violently oppose the government, which carried the huge risk of civil war.
Terrifying prospect.
Absolutely. Or choose a path that, while painful, would allow them, they hope, to eventually lead the state effectively in the future.
And the decision they made?
The decision to avoid that direct, potentially violent confrontation is presented in the sources as being absolutely crucial for their perceived current ability to lead Israel during difficult times like today.
So a strategic choice for the long game.
That's how it was framed.
This prompts a really crucial question, then, one the sources grapple with. Must Saul's kingdom necessarily fall for David's to rise?
Exactly. Does the future kingdom, this Davidic era, truly require the complete disappearance or collapse of the Saul era identity and value?
Or is there another?
Or, as the sources ponder, is there a way to maybe revive Saul's legacy, the positive aspects of it, by adding a new chapter, by infusing it with the story of David?
An integration, perhaps, rather than a replacement.
That's the tension explored.
So, despite all the painful divisions we've talked about, our deep dive also points towards, well, a profound sense of hope, a compelling vision for the future.
It does. The sources suggest that Israel is actually perceived by some as being very close to this historical shift, this transition from the era of Saul to the era of David.
Close now.
That's the feeling conveyed. There's this palpable anticipation of a great repentance move.
Repentance. What does that mean in this context?
Well, the sources are careful to say it's not meant in a primitive, coercive sense. It's described more as a deep internal yearning, a yearning for meaning in Jewish national life, a profound reevaluation and reconnect, described poetically as like cool waters of Torah on a weary soul.
And is there evidence cited for this?
Well, they point to things from the ground, anecdotes from soldiers returning from battle, even interpreting the words of enemies, like shouts of Allahu Akbar or the name Al-Aqsa flood.
How does that fit in?
This whole complex, challenging backdrop, according to the sources, is seen as contributing somehow to the emergence of a deep, faith-based Israeli state, something new rising from the struggle.
And what's the effect of this emergence?
Placing this in the broader context, it's believed to create courage, unity, enthusiasm. It's perceived as a real movement, especially gaining momentum after October 7th.
A shift away from
the idea of disengagement towards profound connection, a kind of coalition of souls, as one source puts it, built on shared values, heritage, history, identity.
And this brings us right back to the Saul and David metaphor, doesn't it?
It does. Full circle, with that powerful idea that Saul's spirit doesn't actually have to be extinguished.
Right.
It can perhaps be revived, even transformed through this renewed Davidic spirit.
A synthesis.
And this whole feeling seems captured by one particular word or place.
Kisufim.
Yes, Kisufim. It's both a kibbutz near Gaza, tragically impacted on October 7th, and the Hebrew word itself means yearnings. And our sources describe visits to kibbutz Kisufim almost as a symbol, symbolizing this almost physical, heart-exploding yearning to return to the land nearby, an unwavering belief that they will return.
Wow.
It serves as this really powerful, deeply emotional metaphor for the profound connection to land and identity that really underpins so much of this entire discussion we've been having.
What a profound exploration that was. We've traced the complex and often really painful legacy of the Gush Katif disengagement. We've examined the deep societal fault lines it revealed or deepened. And then we journeyed toward this vision of future unity, of profound meaning framed through that Saul.
Indeed. The narratives we've explored today, they really highlight this enduring struggle within a society that's grappling past, its present, future.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a testament, too, to that powerful human desire we all have for connection, for purpose, even when we're facing these deep ideological divides.
Absolutely. So what does this all mean for you listening? It leaves us, I think, with a provocative thought to ponder. As societies everywhere face their own painful historical turning point, how do they navigate those conflicting memories to actually forge a shared future? And maybe what kind of great repentance, that deep yearning for meaning and reconnection might be necessary for profound unity to emerge from division.
Something to definitely ponder.
Something to ponder as you go about your